How we doing, everyone? It's Thursday, the 7th of December, and this is the Celtic Way briefing, or the morning briefing. Just me and Ryan on today. Ryan, how many hours sleep did you get?
Too few to mention. I think I'm not a very good sleeper as it is, but no, not as many as I would have hoped for. But at the same time, I think that was down to the fact that I was quite buzzing after the game last night and the performances that we've seen. So yeah, I am running on adrenaline today, but at the same time, happy to come on and discuss last night's game in a bit more detail.
He's a hard-working guy, everyone. Much harder working than I am, and I can say that very honestly. Although I did get up for the game this morning, so we're obviously going to chat a good bit about that. I've actually watched the game back as well, so I've seen it twice. So I've got some kind of things. I always think you learn a bit more the second time. So good to see everyone in the chat on this Thursday, and as always, this video is brought to you by our sponsors, MPH Group at the top, Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialists. With the cold weather rolling in, MPH has an enticing navy and boiler winter promotion just for you. MPH offers flexible finance options, so gear up for the chill and consider making a smart move with MPH and Navy. And you could have done with them last night by the looks of things, Ryan. It was chilly. I've seen a few different podcasts and YouTube channels, and they all have gloves on.
I certainly didn't have gloves on. I had to be typing with my phone in order to get the instant analysis done. So I need those sensor ones, the ones with the wee tips on them that can calculate your fingertips and all that. But I didn't wear them last night. It wasn't as bad as what it was that Motherwell game, the 3:00 kickoff a couple of weeks ago. That was a lot worse. That was in the minus, but it was 2 degrees last time I checked last night. So it wasn't too bad. It has been worse, and it's Scotland, so you get used to the weather.
Yeah, you do indeed. I mean, the performance last night would have had a smile on everyone's face. I think it was much improved from Celtic, wasn't it? I must say, I thought it was a good performance, certainly a big improvement on what we saw in the first half at St Johnstone and the week prior against Motherwell. As I say, having watched the game back, I still think there's far more to come from the team. I really don't think this was close to our best performance, one of our best performances this season. I think we've had far better, but I thought in general it was a good display, and we really kind of limited Hibs. It was a match that really had very little jeopardy for me, even obviously watching it live, and obviously we get the early goal, Ryan, but it was a game I never really had any fears about. Hibs, I never got the impression Hibs were totally serious and believed they could beat us, and equally I never had a feeling that the Celtic team thought anything other than a home win was going to be the result.
Yeah, I think in the first 5 minutes, even before Celtic got the opening goal, you could kind of sense that Celtic were going to have joy with Hibs in the game. Hibs looked very, very open. And Celtic, Brendan Rodgers before the match, he talked about the need for a quick start, a positive, fast start. And he got one from the team. Even before the goal, they were spraying the ball about really, really nicely. They looked dangerous every time they were venturing forward, and it was it all boded well for a good night, and that certainly was the case. But yeah, I'm delighted with the way the performance was. Yes, there is some improvements that need to be made, particularly in the second half. I think the levels dropped just ever so slightly, but that was due to the fact that the game was effectively over as a contest, you could say. But yeah, I think that's the joy of this Celtic team, is that they will get better from this point as well. You're just hoping they can maintain that consistency, and we see those improved levels game by game.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think if we would have gone back, 24 hours to doing the video, what we wanted to collectively, and I dare say a lot of the people in the comments wanted to see, was more energy from Celtic and just a bit of drive about the team, because it has for long parts of the recent weeks and months been a little bit drab. It's just been kind of missing something, and maybe off the park as well, but definitely on the park. And I think we all wanted to just see a bit of energy from the Celtic team, a bit of kind of desire and enthusiasm to really go and, rather than waiting for something to happen, to really go and make something happen. And that's the big positive from last night for me. I think we saw that, and I think we saw it mainly from the midfield. I think that was the key part of the game. The midfield was obviously different. It was Iwata in for his first start in a long time, playing the kind of holding role with McGregor on his left and ahead and O'Reilly on his right ahead. And I thought for me, McGregor was probably the standout player. I just thought he was everywhere and really offered, so much in that left-hand side. It was kind of back to the Callum McGregor of like maybe Brendan Rodgers' first spell, kind of getting involved in everything. And I thought it was a joy to see. The jury's still out for me whether that's his best position, because I do still like him in that number 6, kind of linking the play and controlling the game more. So I'd like to see him maybe in an away game, maybe on Sunday against Kilmarnock, how he does there. But there was a big difference yesterday with Iwata, really playing well in that holding role. Really calm performance from him, and McGregor and O'Reilly doing kind of a lot of the running. It just real energy in that midfield.
Yeah, it was really energy. It was an authoritative performance from Iwata just in that number 6 role. He just sat there and cleaned up absolutely everything that came his way. He's very good in the 1v1 defensive duels. He doesn't normally get nudged off the ball in terms of possession. He's definitely an authority figure in there. And I think he's a safety net as well, and he brings freedom to Callum McGregor and Matt O'Reilly's game. You see, they got a new lease of life because Iwata was just in that position. He was there. They didn't need to worry about their defensive duties as much. I think that was down to the opposition as well. The fact that Hibs will always come out and try and attack against Celtic. It seems to have been that way for as long as I've supported Celtic. For good or for bad for Hibs, they always seem to give it a go at Celtic Park. And yeah, it was a good performance from Iwata. He didn't do anything spectacular, but he didn't need to do anything spectacular in that role. He just kept things ticking. He kept things quietly going. And yeah, I think it was a really, really impressive first start of the season for Iwata. Definitely more to come from him. We'll probably go on to talk about teams for the weekend, but ideally you wouldn't want to change too much, because I thought the midfield looked so fluid last night, and you would want it to stay that way going into the next couple of games.
He doesn't do anything spectacular. I don't, and this isn't meant as a criticism. Iwata hasn't done a spectacular thing, maybe other than that goal at Tynecastle. He hasn't done a spectacular thing in a Celtic shirt, but he doesn't need to be spectacular, to accomplish what he tries to achieve. And he's, the thing I love about him, he's like his positioning is excellent, both with the ball and without the ball. But when he passes the ball, and it's usually just a 5 or 10 yard pass, he moves. He doesn't just stand still. And even if it's just a kind of wee 5 yard move to the side, it doesn't need to be a forward move. He's always making an angle for the next pass. And I just felt like the amount of times last night that it was like a wee triangle, and it was Iwata, McGregor, O'Reilly, and we were just popping it around. And that's something we've not really seen recently from Celtic, and it's not meant as a criticism for the likes of David Turnbull and Odin Thiago Holm, but Bernardo maybe another one that seems to be maybe a few more touches when they want it, whereas last night I felt that midfield were popping it around, and yeah, again, there's much more to come from them, but I think you hinted at it there, but that has to be the midfield 3 going forward while Rio Hatate is still out, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've got to caveat that with the fact that Rio Hatate probably forces his way back into that starting lineup.
We can have that debate when we come to it in December or whenever. January,
absolutely, sorry. Yeah. It's definitely a wee while away, so we don't even need to discuss that, but he probably will get into the starting lineup. As it stands at the moment, I think Iwata's quite happy with his position. He was playing as a right back to start the season. The fact he's probably in his favoured position in that defensive midfield role, he'll be happy with his lot. He doesn't need to push up the park unless the game really calls for an overload in the midfield or the attacking areas. He's happy to just stay in that wee spot and allow players to go forward. He was happy for McGregor to push forward. O'Reilly basically plays as a second striker. When that's the case, he can just sit just behind O, and I thought the two of them linked up quite well on a couple of occasions last night. I thought O'Reilly just in general had another really, really good performance. That you probably seen that in the second viewing, but I thought he was tremendous in some of his touches as well. He's one of these players that when you watch him in person, sometimes you can hear an audible gasp of what he does, because he's that tall and lanky figure, but he's got such a good first touch of the ball, and he makes magic happen. He was also drifting out a lot, wide quite a lot in the game last night, which I found quite interesting, which caused a big problem to his opposite marker and the Hibs defence. just putting a big body out there really does seem to bamboozle a defence, and that was certainly the case on a couple of occasions last night. But I thought it was another really, really good performance and capped off with a goal as well. But yeah, Iwata didn't have to do anything spectacular in the game in order to make things work for him and the team. So yeah, I was delighted with his performance, and plenty more to come from him, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was O'Reilly's 8th league goal in 15 games this season. Just to kind of put that in context, he had 7 in his previous 54 in the league. So 7 in 54 in his first season and a half, 8 in 15 this season. So it's clear, where the improvement has been, and that's been, a big part. And the thing I love about that is it's one of the first things, I'm sure, if you go back to pre-season and look at things Brendan Rodgers said, about his players, one of the first things he said was, we need more goals. We need you to score more goals, Matt O'Reilly. So that was, if he's saying that publicly, that was clearly a big part of their initial chat. And it's just played out. And O'Reilly's now probably, must be one of the top goal scorers in the league with 8 goals. And that goal last night, a header, I don't think he scores that last season. I don't think he's got the hunger to get on a cross like that last season. It was just his second headed goal, actually. You remember the other one, just out of interest? You have to go a bit back. It was St Johnstone. No. Remember the 7-0 game?
Yeah.
Because he scored that brilliant team goal a couple of minutes later, but the first goal was a header. But I think that's only 2 goals he scored with his head.
I think the goal I'm thinking of is actually the one that Kyogo taps in from about half a yard, because Matt O'Reilly headers it and the goalkeeper saves
Motherwell.
Motherwell. Yeah. So you're better remembering your teams. I was getting a bit stuck in the comments yesterday for saying Lennon Miller played for St Mirren as well, so that's a double, 2 faults. But it's definitely a weapon that he's got. He's one of the tallest outfield players for Celtic. I'm always groaning when he's taking the corners, because I'm like, he could easily be a presence in the box, but if he's only as good as the service that is provided to him. And Lewis Palmer's ball again, that's a joy to behold. That's O would be desperate for a ball like that to come into him. He got a similar ball last time out against Aberdeen, or one of the last times out. But yeah, a great delivery from a player. It's a player that's so used to giving out assists this season, and O'Reilly as well. The fact that Lewis Palmer's probably catching up with him on that haul too. It's a good competition that those two are having amongst themselves for most goal contributions this season. I look forward to seeing that extended over the course of the season.
Got a good kind of goal of the season competition going on between them as well.
Absolutely.
Although Palmer could have his own, I think. Just on the topic of Rodgers saying things and then them playing out, and Palmer's an obvious one to talk about. Again, Rodgers very, very public with things. Brendan Rodgers, much more so than Ange Postecoglou. We know that from his first spell, but obviously he's had some things to say about Mikey Johnston after the game last night that we'll definitely talk about. But the point I was going to make, he made a point about Palmer probably a couple of months ago, about Palmer needing to kind of go on his outside more and become less predictable, and that was again something that was very, very obvious to anyone watching Lewis Palmer in the early weeks. Everything he did, and I mean everything, was him cutting inside. He's kind of changed that, and he actually does a lot more running outside, and you saw that for the O'Reilly goal, wasn't it? And I think he had another run early on in the game as well when he ran down the touchline effectively, and he's actually become very good at it, and he almost looks like he always still wants to cut inside, and it's almost as if the defender still thinks he's going to cut inside, but he's actually got a bit more pace than I thought he had when he first signed, and he's kind of making that a little bit of a trademark as well, being able to go on the outside.
Yeah, his opposition defender was having an absolute nightmare trying to cover him, because he didn't know where he was going whatsoever. His unpredictability is going to be one of his biggest weapons going forward for Celtic, I believe, because he's got all the ability in the world. If he just switches it up and switches up what he's going to do, then the defenders are going to keep on guessing and they won't know where he's going. I think it also helped the fact that Greg Taylor and Callum McGregor were both making decoy runs a couple of times. Maybe they would have thought that they would have got the ball a couple of times, but Palmer's definitely one of these guys that has a lot of confidence in his ability to do things. And there was a few times that I thought he would have passed to Callum McGregor, but Callum McGregor at half-time would have maybe pulled rank at half-time and said, right, you've got to pass to me, I'm the captain. Don't think he works like that, but it's good that he's given him that option. but there's clearly a confidence from from Palma's teammates that he can put that delivery into the box and make things happen, whether it be an assist or if he goes in and tries a shot. But whenever he's on the ball, I feel it now, and you definitely feel it in the stadium when you're there. There seems to be an expectancy that something magic is going to happen, that magic is going to come from Palma's boots, and that's good because the numbers don't lie. The goals and assists this season for Palma, they're racking up every single game. But it's good that he's brought that unpredictability, that he can cut inside as well as go on the outside. If he can keep that unpredictability, then the world really is his oyster at Celtic. I think he's going to cause every defence a problem, regardless of the opposition.
I think that derby at the end of December is just going to, he's just going to light that up. I've just got a feeling he's going to be a key player to produce a bit of brilliance in that game. We'll go through a few of the comments here. Maestro saying, and I think this is about Iwata. He definitely brings stability and versatility with McGregor. Seamus talking about O'Reilly. Big Matt O'Reilly, top class player. Hopefully he's with us for the next few years. Class on and off the field as well. I totally agree with that. Seamus, and great name as well. Kind of like mine, but with an S. Ewan, talking about Owen, we'll probably come on to Owen now. Very happy with Owen last night. He actually suits Rodgers' style more than Kyogo. We need to be prepared for Ange to make a bid for Kyogo in January. We're just going to completely ignore that last bit because I don't fancy having a conversation about Kyogo potentially going to Spurs. But on I'm not surprised. I think that's the theme for me last night. Iwata and I didn't come away from that game very surprised that both of them had delivered, because I think a lot of fans, have been saying that, give these guys a chance and they will deliver. Always getting a lot of criticism at the start of the season, but it's when he was playing 5 minutes, 10 minutes, at the end of a game, often when the game was over, whether we're losing or winning. Yesterday was the second start of the season, and I think, when he starts, Ross County being the other one, when he starts, he kind of is a handful and obviously gets a couple of goals last night as well.
Yeah, he's a complete nuisance, something that you'd associate with Kyogo as well, but he's even more of a nuisance when you think of his frame. What is he, 6'1", 6'2"? So he puts himself about. He's a constant menace for the Hibs defence, but he's mobile as well. Not as mobile as Kyogo, but I think he can get away with that. The fact that he's height, he can get in and be physical with players. That second goal in particular, I know he's lucky with the first goal, but you're in the right place at the right time to just put it away. And if your luck's for you, then you'll get rewarded in that regard. And I think maybe his luck was rewarded for the amount of work that he did for that St Johnstone third goal. Maybe I don't know if I believe in karma too much, but he get positive karma off of that for the work that he did for the St Johnstone goal, because he was rewarded for being in the right place at the right time for the Hibs goal. But that second goal is just, people have been calling it Sutton-esque, Hartson-esque.
I think it's Kyogo-esque.
Yeah,
genuinely, I can see Kyogo doing that.
Yeah, it's just his physicality, that slight nudge to, I think it was Will Fish that he was up against, it totally nudged him out of the way. It was absolutely
you would have missed this, by the way, but did you hear the patter from Tony Cudahy on Celtic TV?
Yeah, is that the Instagram nod?
He ordered a large fish. He also had a bit of him and Peter Grant had a bit of patter right before the game that I was kind of questioning whether they should have been joking about that. People might know what I'm referring to, but I don't know what they were up to last night, but they were clearly a bit high on the fumes of a top performance, because they were certainly going for it.
Getting into the Christmas spirit, being a wee bit merry. Plenty had lots. They would have had lots to talk about regarding positives in the game anyway. But yeah, delighted with O's overall performance. He does miss chances, as do most strikers. To be honest, most strikers will get chances. There's better strikers than O that will miss clear-cut chances in games. But he got his 2 goals. He deserved it for his hard work. And Brendan Rodgers seemed delighted with him after the game. So yeah, again, not to give too much away for the predicted 11s that will be coming out in the next 48 hours or so, but I don't believe Brendan Rodgers will be changing it, especially with 2 goals. A really, really good overall performance from O, and he really does seem as if his tail's up at the moment, which can only be good for the club. I think he's heard the rumours about a potential striker coming in, and he took it personally.
I know. Sorry, Ryan, I'm going to have to start banning people from the chat because there's some terrible patter here about fish. Battered fish for the second. Kaiser saying
That's a
Scales was
violation.
all over Fish. So that'll be bans for those two. We can't have Patter like that. Oh,
Nah,
cast him out.
Do you know what the thing is? The thing is, Tony would love this too. So that's the difference.
I know.
While Tony's away,
Save
the
all that
comments
chat
will
for
play.
when Tony's back. I know. Dear oh dear. Hopefully no more of that nonsense. Right, Mikey Johnston's probably a place to go now. Brendan Rodgers. Mikey needs to do more. That's the reality. Again, throwing the gauntlet down. It's not the first time that he's called Mikey Johnston out this season. You may remember right again at the start of the season when he announced that Mikey Johnston would miss the first few months of the campaign. I think it was a back injury, and he basically said that Mikey Johnston needs to find a way to get himself fit and to contribute. So there's clearly some sort of tough love going on here between Brendan Rodgers and Mikey Johnston. My question is, will this work? Because it's quite like kind of called him out. It was like, and he chose to call him out as well. I don't know if you actually heard the question from the BBC that he was asked, but it was actually a positive question. What did you think? Really impressed, and he didn't really need to mention Mikey Johnston, but he did. Now, many people will probably think rightly so. I kind of think I don't have a problem with it personally, but what's your take?
Yeah, he was kind of given the second opportunity to talk about Mikey Johnston, and he took it as a sort of negative or maybe positive criticism in which that he needs to do more in the game. I actually thought that he started the game okay. He won the corner that led to the first goal.
Yeah, he did.
I think this is his problem. He can start a game well, and then he goes into his shell a wee bit. I don't know if he hears the crowd. I thought the crowd weren't on his back at all last night. They were quite positive towards him, probably thanks due to his good performance against St Johnstone. But he's got this over-reliance, and I spoke about this in the post-match, that he beats a man, and then it's as if he needs confirmation that he's beat his man, so he needs to beat him again and again and again. There was a point in the second half in particular where he beats his man, he gets past him, and then it almost seems as if he reverses it and wants to do it again. I don't know if he wants these 1v1 duel statistics to go in his favour or something, but he's got to...
He's sure enough of himself. I think that's what it is. It's like he's almost like... Yeah, feels he has to beat people twice, whereas if you almost feel if he beat him once and just drove forward and committed another player, and he doesn't need to skin everyone himself, he just maybe takes it past one and then moves the ball on, it creates space.
Palmer's very good at doing that for Celtic at the moment, and he was good at doing that last night. I think for Johnston, and not to make that Palmer comparison again, but I'm going to, Palmer's younger than Johnston. Just think about that and think about the levels that the two of them are playing at. Rodgers is very
Johnston's probably one of the older players, like genuinely. Like he's older than O, he's older than O'Reilly, he's older than Palmer. Like Scales, he's probably older than Alistair Johnston, maybe similar age. So he's one of the veterans of that team. As daft as that is a bit daft. Yeah. Due
to his frame, he just looks like one of the younger players, and I think everybody's associated with. Forrest had the same sort of feeling with the fans. Everybody called James Forrest young James Forrest. I actually heard young Graham Carey at the weekend. I was going to say that, which was a really, really weird one. I remember when Carey made his debut against... I remember when he's made his debut against Rapid Vienna. I think he was playing with Paul McGowan and what's his name? What was that? Caddis, Paul Caddis as well.
Kenny Dalglish.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's in the same class at school as him. But yeah, he's definitely one of the more senior players. And I think Brendan Rodgers is right to not really call him out, but say that, you are 24 years old. There's other players that are even younger than you that put in more of a team performance, that contribute more to the team. And he's basically saying for him to get his levels up or he'll be out of there, unfortunately. I think he's only got, is it not like 6 or 7 months left in his deal as well? I'd need to double check that. I know he got an extension before he went out on his loan move to the Portuguese club that he was at, but it's definitely make or break time for Mikey Johnston. I just wonder if maybe a change of scenery could be better for him. As much as I was delighted with his performance on Sunday, he's got to be able to do it at home in order for me to really think that he's got a future at the club, because that's where half of his games are getting played. If he can only do it away from home, then that's a problem for Celtic going forward. So I'm sure he'll get another chance before the season's out, that's for sure. But as I was saying last night, that's one game closer until both Daizen Maeda and Leah Labada come back to the club, who will both be first team picks, you would assume, or they'd be the first players off the bench. So he's kind of running out of time in order to stake his claim at the moment.
I mean, I think it's important we don't do the all or nothing thing every single video with Mikey Johnston, and we came on Monday and we're going, oh, this could be the start of something special, and then suddenly we start, slamming him, and I'm not saying we are doing that, but as you said, Ryan, I thought he was fine last night. I didn't even think he was good, but he wasn't bad, if you know what I mean. Like, he did some things well, and then there was other things where I was kind of, looking at a generally good team performance and wanting a good bit more. And it is it's an easy comparison to make with him and the other winger Palma, and it was kind of night and day last night. So I thought, as you say, he played a part of winning the first corner for the other goal. Created a few things, a few overhit crosses. It just didn't really happen for him. But I hope that, I hope he's back. I mean, I would start him again at the weekend. Like, I would have him at Rugby Park on that pitch and go and let's see what you can do, because it's important that he becomes a player who can do it from the start. And I'm glad to hear Rodgers made that point as well, because it's something that I've been saying and something that a lot of Celtic fans have been saying for years with Mikey Johnston, that when he comes on as a sub into a game, he's brilliant a lot of the time. I don't know why that is, if it's a mentality thing, if it's his fresh legs, but when he starts a game, he's less likely to actually, put in a good performance. He's a bit like Sead Haksabanovic, who's yet another winger who, people have probably forgotten about, but is still, a Celtic player, and he was similar last season, I thought, in that he was good off the bench, but the minute he started the game, it was almost just like a different mentality that he couldn't deal with. So yeah, I'm fine with the Rodgers stuff, and hopefully he starts at the weekend and can impress. One thing I did want to mention, clean sheet, a lack of a clean sheet, just 3 from our last 14 matches, which is not good. Obviously that includes European matches where we've not kept a clean sheet yet. But I just thought last night, like, I was, really kind of hoping the defence would get a bit of a boost from that. And it's not like Hibs really created anything, but it was just a bit of a soft goal. It was almost as if we just kind of dropped our level and switched off for a minute.
Yeah, it's always disappointing to lose a goal, especially at home. Didn't help the fact that there had to be a change at half time. Precautionary. Cameron Carter-Vickers was taken off for Phillips, but he did, I don't think Phillips looked too smart for that goal. There was also another point in the game where Eli Johan basically left him for dead. That's a 1v1.
The first thing he did when he came on, it was literally the first thing, and he was all over the place. He was lucky not to give away a penalty. Ozzy actually thought Phillips was way off it. Am I wrong for thinking you'd rather see Narotsky or Lagerbielka come on there? Because Phillips isn't going to be here in a month's time, is he?
The only thing to counter that point is the fact that he is an emergency loan. Would you not want to play an emergency loan on a plastic pitch rather than one of these players that could potentially pick up a knock? I know they've got to deal with these pitches, but you don't want. I don't think Carter-Vickers will play on Sunday due to that. If there's any sort of precaution, then you should not play him on a plastic pitch, which can only aggravate that sort of injury that could make it even worse for him. If to be fair, it is the injury, it is the stadium rather that Nawrowski picked up that injury in the final 10 seconds. Don't know where he is. Actually, to be fair, Brendan Rodgers did speak about the fact that Nawrowski was fully fit in training. So it could be a game for him. It could be a game for Lagerbielke. It could even be a game for Stephen Welsh. He did sign that new deal before getting injured the next day, and that's him now. I think he's back in training too. There's definitely been pictures of him training. So yeah, there's options. As I was saying last night in the post-match, there is so many defensive options for Celtic at the moment at centre-back. Just so happens that Scales has got the yellow jersey, as Tony would say. But with Carter-Vickers carrying maybe a tiny bit of a knock, I wouldn't play him in the next 2 games because I think he's a dead rubber against Feyenoord, and there's a chance for another player to come in, maybe Lagerbielke. Maybe just in order to nurse that injury. He's so important, and you've got to look ahead into the future. Carter-Vickers is going to be so important to the long and medium term success of Celtic this season. So you've got to keep him right. This could be a good chance to throw Nawrowski or Lagerbielke back into the fold and really see if they've improved from when they last had a start. I wouldn't be against either of them starting, but at the same time, I could see why Phillips would maybe get a start as well. Maybe a more physical game. In fact, he's good with headers as well. But I think he'd probably need to wisen up his ideas at the back, especially for that game. Because it'd be a physical game against Kilmarnock.
Yeah. It was more like last night at half time. I can't actually remember what other defenders were on the bench, but just as a general point, like, I've not got a massive problem with Phillips coming on, but I'm just like, if you're going to take Carter Vickers off, fine, but would you not rather see a player that's going to be here long term? Like, I want to see Nawrocki, especially. It's early with Lagerbielke. I would say he's had more chances though than Nawrocki. We've only seen Nawrocki for 2 or 3 matches, and I thought he looked pretty good. So I want to see him back in. And I was just a bit like kind of Phillips. Like, it's not as if this is Beckenbauer we've got on loan, and like we need to make the most of having him. I mean, nothing against him. He's fine. He's not been horrendous or anything. But I don't think he's been particularly great either, and I would just have rather see someone else. But it's not a major issue. We also had Ralston coming on at left back, which again I don't really know what that says about Bernabe, who's now missed out on 3 match squads in a row. He seems to be miles out of the picture. We had Kyogo coming on, missing his big chance, 2 big chances. We had Tilio coming on and doing quite well for that late Iwata chance. I thought there were some good feet there. And Bernardo, who kind of did all right as well. So I thought in general it was a good night, and it sends us into the weekend in good spirits.
Yeah, it was a game that I definitely thought could have been more difficult given the opposition, but Celtic negotiated it quite well. The Carter Vicker precaution aside, and the conceded goal, but still 4-1. I predicted that before the game even started. I thought both teams would score, but at the same time, I thought Celtic would score more goals than the opponent. That equates to a win, 4-1. Very happy days. It's good for the goal difference as well. A couple of goals ahead as well. That could be all important come the end of the season. You never know, so it's always good to get in that habit of scoring goals. Some good individual performances, some places to work on. There was a bit of a drop in the second half for that 10, 15, 20 minute spell, but at the same time the game was effectively over as a contest at that point. It shows that Celtic can turn it on and then manage their fitness for some games. I know the conceded goal wasn't ideal, but yeah, it shows that they've got so much firepower in their game that they can just finish off just like that within 60 minutes, which is very handy. So yeah, plenty more positives than negatives. I'm not going to moan too much about a 4-1 win at Celtic Park, especially against Hibs, a team that Celtic dropped points to only basically a month ago at Easter Road. So yeah, I'm quite delighted with the way things have gone. Just finally, I see people talking about Alistair Johnston in the comments. I feel like it would be quite bad to miss him out, because I thought he was really, really good last night. There was a point where he got to the byline, especially in the first half, that was like, that's the old Alistair Johnston. That was the one that we were watching under Ange Postecoglou. It seems as if he's slowly getting back to his best after a couple of disappointing European games, I would say. His game against St Johnstone and then his game against Hibs last night. I think that's 2 good performances in a row from him. So it's good to see that he's back on the right track.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, and I think on the same point or similar point, Carter Vickers, it was one of his better performances as well. I thought he was kind of back to his best. So I think there was a lot of positives last night, a lot of negatives in the chat today as well. Just those puns, mate. I can't go with them. It's really. I was going to do my own pun there, but I genuinely can't follow through on that. Someone was saying they're fed up of hearing all these fish puns, so I think we'll finish with that. Thanks very much, everyone, for tuning in, and even those of you who spent the whole video thinking of how you could fit haddock and place and cod into various Celtic related sentences. I really appreciate you all. You're great people, and thanks, Ryan. Do you want to say goodbye?
Thanks everybody for joining us, we really do appreciate it, and thank you everybody for being on the pre and post match show last night. We got some good numbers last night, so I really appreciate everybody that was on both before the game and late after the game, both live and in the recorded video. So yeah, really do appreciate everybody's support.
Yeah, hate cake everyone, we'll see you later.